Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask a question which I'm going to flip in here for you guys. He wants me to talk a little bit about Bulgarian light and just explain to people how it works and what you do with it. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, do a little bit of crafting, and let's talk about it. There's a couple of names that you can't discuss Bulgarian light today without throwing out there. Real high on that list right now is going to be, again, Greg Nuckols and Matt Perryman. And the reason they need to be mentioned when talking about Bulgarian light is because they both have put variations of this out there in writing and written form. Is pretty good guidelines for you guys to work with. So I don't want to mention this without mentioning their writings, because I've read what both of them have written on it. You guys know I've run Bulgarian light myself. And it helped me tremendously coming in as a previously completely medically disabled middle-aged man, branching back over into competitive powerlifting. Because you guys got to remember, I spent 10 months in bed sick and almost 4 years away from being able to train medically in my 30s. It's hard to come back from that, and I felt like Bulgarian light helped me a lot. It's the only reason I got my raw squat back over 500 pounds, which you guys have seen me do like 510 on camera, raw without wraps, without sleeves. In the past, back when I was still squatting heavy. But yeah, it absolutely is a valuable tool. And Bulgarian light, for people who aren't familiar with that, it's because it's based on the idea of the Bulgarians. The Bulgarians had devised a system of training which helped them win all these gold medals in the Olympics. And I don't want people to think that sort of training is 100% physical. A lot of it was psychological, to weed out people who couldn't make the cut, didn't have the genetics, so that they could get the genetic elite in their lifting programs out of a very small country, and so that the people had to train so much that they didn't have time for lives outside of the gym. And that is how they won all those gold medals, that they weren't distracted by other things besides winning medals in the Olympics. And they had them doing training maxes 3 times a day, 6 days a week. So they were coming in and doing 3 training sessions, morning, midday, and evening, and then sleeping and taking naps in between all of them. But they hit training maxes. Training maxes are usually the heaviest weight that you can lift while maintaining perfect technique and bar form for 1 rep. Like, bar speed has to be fast and perfect technique. That's a training max. It's usually about 90% of your competition max, your absolute max. All right, well, what we found is that obviously most people can't do this 3 times a day, people who have jobs, lives, things like that. So variations have come out to where Matt Perryman has a system called Squat Every Day, to where you come in and you hit a max squat every day, and then you can do the same thing with some of your other lifts too, but he has you focus on the squat first and foremost, and he has you train that way. And his variation is lifting the heaviest weight that you can without psyching yourself up while maintaining good speed. And again, that's going to put you at around 90%. Which means, as he put it, no Slayer playing through your headphones, no music to pump you up, no pre-workouts, no stimulants. You come in and you build up to a training max. No psychological arousal. And that's part of what he does. And that way you just get stronger and stronger and stronger. Now, John Broz, on variations that he's done with his athletes, is they come in and they hit a training max like that on a big lift, and then sometimes they do a triple, a back off triple with about 85%. So they do 3 reps after resting a few minutes after hitting their training max. And then Greg Nuckols, what he has people do is, he calls it Bulgarian light as long as they're coming in and doing their maxes 4 days a week. Now, he says you can go up to 6, but the variations that Greg Nuckols has run and he has written about, as long as you're doing at least 4 days a week of hitting training maxes, Bulgarian light. Now, you guys also watched, what's his name? Some other big YouTuber, Mike Rashid. I don't necessarily like Mike Rashid, but at least he tried this and it worked, and it got him to a 500 squat. So, you know, again, example after example of YouTubers here who got their squats back up to 500 plus pounds raw by doing this. All right. So how do you run it? What would I recommend? I would say I really like Greg Nuckols' variation because it allows you to do as few as 4 days a week if you need to. Rather than always doing it every day. Now, John Broz would argue that that's incorrect, by the way, that you have to do it every day, or else you could overtax your connective tissue. Whole nother argument there, of course. But I do like the way Greg Nuckols broke it down, and basically, this is one of the reasons I respect Greg Nuckols, by the way. His particular writing on the Bulgarian light system is one of the reasons I kind of like what he does. Because I think it was very well written, and it's out there somewhere. You should be able to find it on his Strength Theory website. But yeah, at least 4 days a week, come in on all your big lifts, whether they're squat, deadlift, bench press, and I would even say some sort of overhead press is reasonable, like a push press. Come in and you hit a training max, all right, a training max, which is what I just described, around 90% of your max. And you know what, it's going to vary from day to day, and you can ramp it up and hit singles and add 20 pounds until you get to that training max. You know, and just do each one by feel. Rest a couple minutes between, but you ramp up on your squat, your deadlift, your bench press, and your push press. You do 4 exercises for a training max. And it doesn't have to be those. It could be other lifts. Maybe you don't bench press. Maybe you're not a power lifter, but you're trying to build your 1 rep max strength. You could do it on the push press instead and just completely leave the bench press out. And as far as doing back off triples, like some people recommend, you know, it's going to depend upon what you're doing and what your recovery is like. For guys who are drug free, I'm going to recommend that you don't hit those back off triples more than twice a week. So if you're coming in 4 to 6 times a week and hitting the singles, don't do the back off triples more than twice every week, and space them out a little bit. Do them on the days when you feel strongest, most recovered. So if you come in and you have a day to where you do really well on the max and you still feel you have a lot of energy and strength in the tank, do the back off triple with 85%. Now that needs to be 85% of what you hit on the training max. So if you hit 400 pounds on the training max and you know that was your true training max for the day, you felt strong, you felt good on it, it locked out fast, perfect technique, you take 15% off of that. So 15%, so 4 times 15, so 340 pounds, and you do that for a triple. And you go to the next exercise. And you know what, when you do these right, your workout should be, you know, less than an hour, because you're coming in and doing this. Now, a lot of people will say, well, what about accessory movements? Oh, what about accessory movements? There would be guys like Broz who will argue that for Bulgarian light systems, you don't need accessory movements. If you have energy for accessory movements, you need to be doing the main lifts an extra day. Why are you worried about accessories? Get good on the main lifts. Who cares about accessories? I would argue, on the other hand, if you're only hitting your training maxes like 4 days a week, there's definitely room for some accessory work. But like I said before, how much accessories? You don't need a lot. You want to come in and do some weighted chin-ups or some pen lay rows to make sure your lats are strong, perfectly acceptable. As far as extra tricep work though, if you're doing a push press and a bench press, particularly if you're doing back off triples, I'm going to recommend that you don't do tricep accessory work. I think that will cause you elbow problems over time. So I would hate to see people coming in and doing tricep isolation when they're doing that much heavy pressing. I think it will interfere with your recovery, and I think it will cause you to have inflammation that causes you to deload faster. I don't recommend it. And besides, if you can't build powerful triceps off doing a bench press and a push press 4 to 6 times a week, there's no isolation movement in the world that's going to help you. But things like lats, things like the biceps, stuff like that sometimes need a little more, and I get that. Or even hamstrings a little bit. So if you need to do some glute ham raises or some chin-ups or some pen lay rows as an accessory, okay, that's fine, do them. But like I said the other day, how much volume should you do on accessory movements? Somewhere between 25 and 30 reps. And because you're on the Bulgarian light and you're doing so much volume, unless you're doing these as explosive movements, also don't do them more than once a week. So if it's a chin-up or a glute ham raise, I wouldn't do an accessory day more than 1 day a week at the end. And I would do it on a day when you know you're taking the next day off. So if you're training 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, then yeah, maybe your Saturday could be your accessory day. But if you're doing an explosive exercise like a pen lay where you can do 3 to 5 reps, you could do those twice a week. No problem there. And come in and do, you know, 3x3 or 3x5 twice a week. Or if you're going to do 3x3, go ahead and do it three times a week. That's fine. But again, they need to be fast and explosive if you're doing that stuff. These are not sets to failure. Now, if you want a high rep stuff, like I said, somewhere between 25 and 30 reps a week, which I said in the Q&A this week, is the ideal volume for an accessory movement or an accessory body part, because that's enough to stimulate growth. The whole purpose of accessory movements is generally what? To bring up the muscle mass in a lagging performance area. And that's the whole point. So people will say, well, you know, are you going to grow off of all of this? And how would you not grow off of all of it? You're coming in and you're squatting, deadlifting, bench pressing, and push pressing for a training max almost every day, and you're progressing and getting stronger. How could you not get big off of it? Of course you're going to get bigger off of it. But here's the thing. I wouldn't recommend a novice go straight into Bulgarian style training. I would love to see a novice build their strength base first by doing actual rep work. I don't care if it's a 5x5, a 3x8, a 3x10, whatever sort of protocol you want to run. I would recommend a novice run a linear progression program and put on as much muscle mass as possible. Like my novice program is fine. My linear hypertrophy program is fine. Run those for 6 months, maybe even a year. Build a foundation of muscle mass. Then you have enough muscle mass and strength base built that you can run into something like Bulgarian light and then optimize all of your 1-rep maxes. You can increase all your speed, all your power, all your maxes that way. And that's the thing that people need to realize when we're talking about this. This is for raw lifting. And the best way to get good at raw lifts is to practice doing the raw lifts heavy over and over and over with pause work, with full range of motion. That's how you get stronger on these things. That's how you get stronger. That's how you improve your max, by doing training maxes over and over and over and over, and ingraining the skill of the movements and working with a very heavy weight. But again, the point has to be highlighted. Bulgarian light style training is not doing 100%. It is not a competition max. You're not coming in and screaming and slapping yourself and taking pre-workouts and listening to music. You're lifting the heaviest weight that you can lift for a single while maintaining perfect form and bar speed. There's no grinding allowed. There's no room for missed reps. All right? You do not miss lifts. You never, ever, ever attempt a lift in Bulgarian light style training that you do not know with 100% certainty that you can lift. And you need to learn to check your ego at the door. Because if you grind a rep, the weight slows down and you have to grind it, or a spotter has to touch the bar, you've absolutely screwed up the program and you don't understand your limits. You're probably not mentally ready for this sort of program if that sort of stuff happens, because there's no room for that. This sort of program is training max. It is training to lift a heavy weight fast and with perfect form over and over and over. Not can I push myself to the limits. And the whole goal is to see your training max increase. So basically, if you have a 400-pound training max and you start one of these programs on an exercise and you end with 500 pounds later, then you're doing the 500 pounds with perfect form, no grinding, fast bar speed, just like you did the 400 when you started. I can assure you that your real max has gone up by at least 100 pounds also. And that's the whole idea. It's about progressive overload and training yourself to lift heavy weights fast and perfect. And if you get stronger doing that, then everything goes up. All of your strength goes up across the board, including your 1-rep max, including your 5-rep max, including your 10-rep max. Because you've improved your work capacity, you've improved your neural efficiency, and you've probably grown the muscles as well. But the thing to remember, most important thing to remember, Bulgarian style training is about focusing on the main lifts. You need to be very, very careful when you add accessory movements in, because guys will come in and they want to do a bunch of accessories for something and they don't realize that they very, very quickly, by doing too much accessory work, they negatively affect their main lifts because they're not recovering. Those little small muscles that they're working and the connective tissue on them don't always get to recover correctly, and it will interfere with your big lifts, and it will lead to faster overtraining. It will lead to faster injuries. Accessories need to be picked very carefully and only when you know you need them, and they need to be done only in the minimum amount necessary to achieve a goal. You don't ever look at accessory work on a system like this and say, hey, I want to do as much of this as I can, as many biceps as I can, as much triceps as I can, as much back as I can. That mindset will not work for Bulgarian style training. It will interfere with your main lifts and the primary goal of the system, and it will ultimately get you hurt. It needs to be, what's the minimum I have to do on these exercises to keep progressing? Because the effort's in the training maxes and the big lifts. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.